Hello, everyone, and welcome to Distributed SQL Summit Asia 2023, and also welcome to this particular session on how to enhance Drupal with a modern cloud-native database. Firstly, a bit about myself. I'm Ashish Thakur, and I'm Director of Technology, Cloud and Platform Engineering at Srijan. To briefly talk about Srijan, Srijan is an engineering company with a creative pulse. That's what we sort of call ourselves. And we have been building great digital experiences for our customers from last 2 decades, mostly using open source technologies. First and foremost, in this particular session, we'll talk about digital experience, its definition, role, digital experience platforms, and the capability that provides. Brief introduction to Drupal, and also we'll talk about how we can create a resilient digital experience using Drupal and Yugabyte. That is actually the crux of this particular entire session. In fact, last we'll talk about, or rather demo, a working version of Drupal running on YugabyteDB and see the resiliency which it provides, right? Now let's go a bit more. Now, in case we try to define digital experience, I think we have examples of it everywhere, wherein we might be using some or other form of a digital product every day to flourish and enhance our needs. And we believe that is the true role of digital experience is that is to seamlessly engage customer, meet their needs through different channels via web, mobile, IoT, AR, VR, and provide them experiences to flourish and unfold their needs. Now, these experiences which I just talked about, right, are typically provided by digital experience platforms, which have following capabilities right away from very basic needs like a better browsing experience to psychological needs like a personalized experience, which you might have sort of observed on an e-commerce application or maybe on a media publishing website or an application wherein a personalized content or maybe an item is recommended to you depending upon your past experience, or maybe depending upon your past browsing history, or maybe depending upon the last item which you have actually bought. Okay, so this is something which would be a personalized experience. In fact, and then maybe even to a higher level, right, there would be some fulfillment needs like AR experience or maybe even virtual living and maybe even metaverse. And all of these particular experiences which I just talked about right away from basic needs to self-fulfillment needs are typically provided by digital experience platforms. Now, in providing the experience which I just talked about, Drupal is one of the most versatile digital experience platform which has evolved from being just a web content management system to a full-fledged digital experience platform, and it currently powers approximately 1.7 million applications or sites globally and provides features like content management as a service, content as a service, like with really powerful REST APIs with a lot of extendability, wherein you can use or rather enhance Drupal's capabilities via a bunch of modules and build a great digital experience for your customer across different omni-channel applications. Now, because of this particular ever-growing, or rather evolutionary nature of Drupal, right, wherein it just from a web content management system to a full-fledged digital experience platform, it has been named as a leader in DXP Magic Quadrant for last consecutive 4 years by Gartner. In case we talk about use cases of Drupal, particularly from an industry vertical perspective, right, I think like it has a relevance in a lot of industries, like right away from retail, commerce, maybe media and publishing, travel and tourism, higher education, non-profits, and all other stuff. In fact, we'll see some of the well-known enterprises in each of these particular verticals using Drupal. In this particular slide, you would see these are few enterprises which we know of use Drupal, right? And there are some well-known names which you can actually see even in this part of the world, right? Take an example, SPH, Singapore Press Holding, and Media Corps. They are like some of the well-known media and publishing houses in Singapore. They use Drupal as a key application for their media and publishing applications, and a lot of their key, front-facing news sites like your CNN and your State Times, About Time, and all the stuff are actually built on Drupal. And even in Johnson & Johnson, it uses Drupal, right? And Globe Telecom, they use Drupal for their internal developer portal. And in case you sort of see in terms of education, right, INSEAD uses Drupal. In BFSI, NASDAQ uses Drupal. Yes Bank uses Drupal, right? In non-profits like World Bank uses Drupal. In fact, like most of the United Nations and sister organization, they are on Drupal. So you see that the use case of Drupal is like across all of the enterprise, like name it, like probably you might find some or other usage of Drupal within an organization or within an industry vertical. In this particular session, right, we will talk about how we can make this experience of the enterprises and maybe even adopt Drupal and make it more resilient, right? And that's where basically we'll sort of talk about Drupal and Yugabyte. So since we are in DSS Summit, hence we'll today the main focus is how we can create a more better resilient multi-cloud experience for building a better digital experience using Drupal and Yugabyte as a database as a Yugabyte database as a DB. Now, firstly, talking about Drupal architecture, you see, in the modern context, Drupal is not just used as a plain web content management system. It is a part of a higher digital experience platform wherein it would be providing a bunch of APIs, and those particular APIs might be used by microservices layer. And further, these particular API might be exposed to the world using an API gateway or an API management tool. And these APIs are consumed by different omni-channel applications like web, mobile, IoT, and all the stuff. All right. And for the database perspective, Drupal uses either MySQL, Postgres, or Oracle. These are like some of the supported databases by Drupal. Now, in case we sort of talk about, right, can YugabyteDB be a better multi-cloud resilient database for Drupal? I think the answer to that is yes. Because why? Because Drupal support Postgres, and since Yugabyte database is PG compliant, hence both of them can actually work together in tandem and provide a better multi-cloud resilient application or a digital experience for your end consumer, right? So in case we talk about in the current times, there are multiple platform or hosting options for Drupal. There are PaaS providers like Acquia, Pantheon, who provide Drupal specific hosting options. However, a lot of times, a lot of enterprises are running Drupal on their public or private public or private clouds. And in the public cloud ecosystem, most of the times a managed service on the likes of Aurora or maybe even managed MySQL by Azure is being used as a database. Now, in case we see, right, unlike YugabyteDB, these particular managed services can sometimes be proprietary and do not allow to build cloud neutral application, maybe even orchestrated on Kubernetes. And you see, right, like failure of Azure data center recently in Singapore is a testimony to the fact, right, that to be resilient, one might need a database which is actually multi-cloud and runs anywhere, right? So that's where basically Yugabyte actually shines. So run your application, your Drupal application on Kubernetes on a different cloud, on a multi-cloud installation, right? Or maybe even a hybrid cloud installation, and even run your database in a similar fashion, right? You do not really have to be tied to a database which is really specific to a certain cloud provider. And that's what we will sort of see in next couple of slides, including a demo. All right. Now you see, right, like how Drupal stack with a modern cloud native database might sort of look like. There might be Yugabyte database, which runs on any cloud provider, right? Name it like AWS, Azure, GCP, Kubernetes, right? Bare metal, virtual machines, right? Anyway, right? On top of it, you would run your Yugabyte database, and your Drupal application would use Yugabyte database as a DB. And just like we sort of talked about, that Drupal application might be exposing certain REST APIs, which is being consumed by microservices. And last but not least, being exposed by an API management tool or an API gateway, and being lastly consumed by a bunch of omni-channel apps. Now, I think so we have done enough of talking. Let's see a working demo. So it's not really a really sophisticated demo, but it shows the features or the resiliency which we were talking about. All right, let's see things in action. Let's see some nerdy things. We'll see a terminal. All right, so in this particular installation, what we have done, we have created a Kubernetes cluster, rather an EKS cluster on AWS, which spans across 3 availability zones, 1A, 1B, and 1C. And onto this particular EKS cluster, we have installed Yugabyte with 3 node 3 node and the replication factor of 3. And Drupal in itself runs on this default namespace, and Yugabyte runs on these 3 namespaces, 1A, 1B, and 1C. All right. Now, to talk about, firstly, let's see how does Drupal look like from a UI perspective, right? Some of the folks who might have already used some sort of a content management system might be already familiar, right? So in a really simplistic terms, Drupal looks something like this, right? This is, I'm sort of logged in as an admin user, but typically what you would see in a content management system, right? It would provide you a bunch of editorial experience wherein you can sort of add different content types, right? Maybe article, basic page, news, and all the stuff, right? In fact, you cannot just sort of add stuff, you can actually create something on your own, right? Maybe even a press release or something similar, right? So this is something you can sort of do, model your content types and all those stuff within Drupal, right? And if you want to extend the core functionalities, right, maybe you can use a bunch of modules, right? That's where basically you can add a bunch of modules, right? In fact, Drupal core itself comes with a lot of modules wherein you can sort of use it and enhance the capabilities. And if you want to sort of enhance the capabilities a bit more, right, you can maybe use modules which have been built by community, and if that particular still not serves your purpose, probably you can use Drupal APIs and build your own module, right? Just name it, like probably you might sort of find a similar module somewhere or other. All right. And it also sort of provides a lot of, what is it, user management, wherein you can sort of add users, roles, and all of the stuff, right? Now, in the backend, this particular Drupal database uses Yugabyte database, all right? Now, as I did talk about, at this point of time, our Drupal database is being hooked to our YBT server, which is on this 1B availability zone, right? Typically, you see, right, you can actually write an application logic, and maybe in case one of your, what is it, Yugabyte installation or a T server sort of goes down, right, it will automatically switch to another T server in some other availability zone. Okay, so that is something needs to be handled at the application layer. In fact, within Drupal, there is a module called auto slave. Probably you can experiment with it and see how does it work, because but due to some time constraints we could not set that up, but I think so like it should be equally possible wherein you can sort of use this module and get that implementation which I just was sort of talking about. Now let's see a replication working in real time. All right, let's switch back to that same other thing. Now out here I have divided my screen into 4 parts. Out this one is 1A, this I believe is 1A, 1B, and 1C. Okay, so what I'm going to do, I'm going to let me show you. Okay, so this is 1C. All right, and this is 1A. I've gotten inside each of these particular cluster, not cluster, rather containers. Okay, this is 1B. Okay, so what we'll do, we'll try to add some content. Let's add a user first. You see, at this point of time, there are 3 users, right? Already replicated across all the 3 different places. Now let's add a new user. Okay, email, let's call that as yb@yb.com. Okay, that looks like a fancy email. Okay, let's use the same password, same username. I'll use some password. Okay, let me use a stronger one. Not that. Okay, just for some, I'll just keep this user in a block state. All right, and let's create that user. All right, created. Since my Drupal is actually hooked to this one, right? Like that's where basically it would initially write, but you would see that entire new content which I've, or rather a user which I've added, would be replicated at all 3 places. Okay, let's see here. It's here. All right, it's YB. It should be here as well. Okay, and it was here as well. All right. Now let's try to induce a failure. Okay, in a normal scenario or in an actual practical life, right, your AZ might go down, or maybe even your region might sort of go down, right? But since this is not really a multi-region or a multi-cloud setup, this is more of a multi-AZ setup. And in this particular demo, what I'm going to sort of do, right, I'm going to sort of delete one of the Yugabyte installations in 1C, okay, for which I'll use a script. Sorry for that. Fireworks, looks like there's something going outside. Can't do nothing, can't do much about it. All right, I'm going to delete this guy. Now you see, in case I go to my UI, looks like people are really excited about Yugabyte. There's some fireworks going outside. That is a really nice background. Nevertheless, jokes apart, this guy has gone down. But is my application really down? Not really. Wait, let's see. Okay, still up. Let's add another user. Let's call it YB2 at yb.com. Same username. I'll probably sort of use the same password. I'm going to block this user. And let's save this user. Okay, let's see. Out here, replicated here. Okay, now let's get this guy back to life. All right, where is my command? Let's see. All right. In case we see both of my containers are coming back to life, it might take a couple of seconds or minutes to come back to life. It's running. Okay, let's sneak inside again. All right, let's type the same command. You see this latest guy with the UID 202 and email called yb@yb.com, yb2@yb.com is also out here, right? That's what basically this instance replication would take place, right? Any if your node goes down, region goes down, or maybe even your AZ goes down, right? You would have that kind of resiliency with Drupal, not Drupal, sorry, Yugabyte database, all right? So that was the whole crux which I wanted to sort of explain, right? Like in case you need a multi-cloud, cloud-native, resilient database experience for your application, or rather your Drupal application, probably Yugabyte is the right choice. All right. Having said that, probably I'll sort of stop here, right? Maybe after this session, what I could sort of do, right, there is a working implementation of Drupal and Yugabyte, which we have, which works on Docker Compose. We could sort of share that with the audience. Folks who want to play around with it, right? You can sort of use that as a reference, okay? And maybe while you're sort of trying to use Drupal within your enterprise or maybe within your company, right? Maybe you could, rather than using the MySQL, right? Maybe experiment with Yugabyte. All right. Having said that, thank you so much, everybody, for your time. All right, I'll leave here.